All right, hi everyone. Welcome to today's admin training session. My name is Jamie Bruin and I'm part of the support team here at SuiteFiles. I believe everyone in this session was in our last session for just standard user training. So in that case, there might be a few things that we can kind of skip over. But basically, this session is all about the admin features, managing your SuiteFiles subscription, managing your SuiteFiles users, setting up folder permissions, setting up user permissions, that kind of thing. Basically, just all the admin stuff that standard users don't need to be aware of. So to kind of start off with it, there's kind of some general information that might be of use to you in terms of things like the whole setup process of setting up apps for your users and knowing what's supported, what's not, that kind of, that kind of thing. So first of all, the supported operating systems are Windows 8, Windows 10, and the latest version of Mac OS. Windows 7, we don't support Windows 7 for our SuiteDrive app in particular. Windows 7 is kind of getting a bit older, so it's harder to keep things running as well as they do on Windows 8 and 10. That being said, everything should work on Windows 7. It might just take a few extra steps or not work as well as running things on Windows 8 or Windows 10. For the best performance, you're always going to want to go for the latest operating system, really. In terms of browsers, on Windows, we recommend and support the Chrome browser. On Mac, it's actually different. I would recommend using Safari, as that's what's actually supported by Office 365. Now, there are some things like, there's some kind of limitations of integrating with Office 365 in the browser. One of those is restricted characters. So there's basically some restricted characters that you can't have in Office 365 Online, which means that you can't have them in folder or file names in your SuiteFiles site. To view a list of those restricted characters, you can go to our help center, suitehelp.suitefiles.com, and you can do a search. It's probably the easiest way for restricted characters. If you select that search result, it will open up this article which has a list of the restricted characters. Now, the ampersand actually seems like it might be supported now in Office 365. However, I couldn't guarantee that all of our apps have caught up to that, so it's safer not to use the ampersand. Otherwise, try and refrain from using any of these special characters. You might be able to upload files. You might find that there's some kind of way where you can rename things or upload things with names with these special characters. However, these special characters can do things like stop you from opening or downloading files or doing certain actions with them. So it's really best practice not to use these. So that's restricted characters. In terms of user management, a lot of people ask how to add new users into their SuiteFiles site. The kind of default way that things are set up is for a new user to be added to your SuiteFiles site. All they need to do is log into your SuiteFiles site for the first time. So they need to log in with their Office 365 credentials. And once they do that, they'll be logged into their SuiteFiles site, and SuiteFiles will automatically add them under your SuiteFiles subscription. So by default, anyone in your Office 365 account can log into your SuiteFiles site. So that is why they can do that. If you want to see what users you currently have under your subscription, we have an account button in SuiteFiles. However, this is still kind of in the works. This is still being built out. So the old way, currently the best way to do it is to go into our management portal. Now, the management portal can be accessed with the URL manage.thefullsuite.com. There isn't an option in your SuiteFiles site, But if you go to manage.thefullsuite.com, what you need to do is log in using your site URL. You need to log in using your Office 365 email address. And lastly, your Office 365 password. And to log into the management portal for your site, you have to be a SuiteFiles administrator. Now I'm just going to log in here and make sure I select the right site. So let's go to demo suite. All right, sorry about that. So what happens when you log in is you'll be presented with this screen. This screen will show you a bit of information. So it will show you things like if you've set your credit card up this way. There's actually a much better way to set up your credit card now, which I'm assuming everyone probably has already. So you don't need to add your credit card through here anymore. But if you have, it will show you information here. On the left-hand side, it will show you things like how many users are currently under your subscription, what actual subscription plan you're on, and roughly what that equates to per month based on how many users you have and what subscription you're on. If you want to go into user management, you click on the Manage Users tab here. And here you will see a list of the current users under your subscription in your site. So we can see all of these users here. If you see a Suite service account here, don't worry about it. It won't be charged on your subscription. It won't be on your invoice. That Suite service account is actually an account our apps use to access, or basically it's kind of like a bridge between the SuiteFiles apps and your Office 365 account. That's what that service account provides. So don't worry about it. You can remove it from the subscription. It won't really make any difference, but just be aware that if it is listed there, you won't be charged for it. If you want to remove users from your subscription, we won't automatically assume that if someone hasn't accessed it in a couple of weeks, that means that they're gone, they're not in your subscription anymore. We don't know if someone's coming back, if they're only going away for a week or all that kind of thing. So if you need people to be removed from your subscription and you no longer want to be billed for them, you will need to remove them yourself here in the user management part of the management portal. And all you do is click the minus symbol next to the listed user, click yes, confirm, and that will remove that user from your subscription. So you can now see that that user has gone. They're no longer being listed under our current users. What happens in terms of your subscription? So your subscription, you're charged for at the end of the month. So like a couple of days ago, people would have received their invoice for the month of April. So you're charged for that month at the end of it. Now, if you remove a user 2 or 3 weeks, a couple of weeks into the month, you'll be charged for that user up until the end of the month. And then you won't be charged for the user after that. So don't be alarmed if you remove a user partway through a month and then they end up in your invoice at the end of that month. It's because they were a user within that month. And once that month's over, you'll no longer be charged for that user. The other thing we can do from the management portal is we can change our subscription type. So we can change the level of our subscription if we want to change to a starter plan or a pro plan, that kind of thing. And then you can just submit that. If you need to view your invoices, click on the View Invoices tab here, and you'll see your invoices will be listed here, and you can click on the invoice here to see that full invoice. I'm just going to stop there. If you need to see users that have been added and removed, you can go into the View Activity tab here. And this will show you things like how many users you started the month with, but it'll also show you things like changing of your subscription and things like new users added into your subscription. Or if they've been removed, it'll also show that they were removed and on what date. So that is the management portal. If anyone has any questions about any of that, feel free to submit those questions through the tool. Otherwise, we will move on to setting up permissions in your SuiteFiles site. Oops. All right then, moving on. So we can go back into our web app. So there are a few things in the web app which admins will see, which standard users might not see. The first of those is under the More tab. They won't see manage users and groups. They might not see manage templates, and I'll explain why. If you click on your username at the top right, standard users won't see this account button. That's only available to the admin of the site. They won't see the SuiteFiles shell. Don't worry about this. It's actually a development thing. It's nothing for users to use. So for managing users and folder permissions, we need to set things up. So if you need to access security groups or users and modify user permissions, you need to go to the More tab and then click the Manage Users and Groups button. When you do this, you will see a list of the groups and a list of your users. Some of these groups are default groups, like the special groups here. Site admins will always have a list of the current users who are admins in your site, and the all contributors list will be basically a list of anyone who has permission to your SuiteFiles site. If you see a group called everyone or everyone except external users, those groups are an Office 365 group, which just allows anyone in your Office 365 account to access your SuiteFiles site. Under all groups will be your security groups. The default groups here are demo site members, site members, site owners, and site visitors. So don't remove these groups. You need them. Under demo site, or under the site members group here, will be your all contributors. So this is the same as all contributors, and that site members are the users who have access to your site, and owners are the admins. If we go into users, you can click on users and you can see information about that user, like when they first and last logged in. If you need to customize their email notification email address for them, you can do that in here. Otherwise, you can see user permissions. And these user permissions are really, really handy. These are specifically for the user we've chosen. So let's say that actually I want to set permissions for Callum. I will go into Callum and I will start customizing these permissions. Now, user as administrator will just make that user a SuiteFiles admin in the site. Being a SuiteFiles admin allows them to do everything that they could possibly do in your SuiteFiles site. However, the downside to making a user an admin is that they will override folder permissions. So if you want users to be able to do some admin actions without overriding folder permissions that you set up, then you will need to give them these specific permissions instead. Now, templating is an admin feature in SuiteFiles. So in the web app, the creating and editing of file templates in particular are something that only admins can do, or users who you give this permission to. So if you give them permission to manage templates, they can do things like create file templates and access the template manager over here, where they will be able to do things like create template categories and edit file templates in there. The next permission we have for users is the permission to delete files. This will give them permission to be able to delete files in SuiteFiles. So if you need them to delete things, and again, without being an admin, then you can give them permission here to delete files. If you want them to be able to download folders as a zip file, then you can give them this permission here as well. So we've actually currently got all three of these permissions on for this user. So this is allowing them to basically do just about anything that an admin would do, aside from override folder permissions, and they won't be able to access things like your account or the management portal. It'll also show you here what groups, what security groups the users are a part of. So if you need to just see quickly for a particular user what groups they belong to, you can view that information here. And then just a little information here that shows you files they've recently accessed. Now, for setting up permissions for folders, the first thing we have to do is create security groups. So these security groups that I didn't mention, like business and admin and demo group and demo security group and ninja group, these are custom security groups that have been set up by someone in the site. So I'm just going to make that go empty again. There we go. So if we want to create security groups, the way to do it is we click on the blue Create Group button at the top right here. We enter a name for our security group. It might be, you might want to name them like, you know, it's a business and admin group, it's business owners, it's directors, or it's, I don't know, whatever kind of group you want really. I'm going to go ahead and name this something like IT admin group. Once you've provided a name for your new security group, you can click the Create Group button. This is going to create our new group, and now we can add users into this group. So what we want to do is we want to click the Add Users to this group button. We want to type in the name of a user. We can click on the user to select them from the drop-down list, and we can add multiple users at a time. So we can add, let's add Callum as well, and we'll also add Andrew. So I've got 3 users here who I want to be part of this IT admin group. I've entered in the users here, so I can now click confirm. This will add those 3 users into our group, and we can see they're listed now. If we need to remove any users from this group, maybe I accidentally added Andrew and he wasn't supposed to be part of the IT admin group, then I can hover over the red button and click delete, and that will remove him from the group. After you've initially added users, you can also click the Add Users button again to add further users to this group. So let's say I want to now add Kim. I can then click the blue Confirm button, and that will also add Kim to our IT admin group here. If we need to delete groups, you can click on the red delete group button and it will just delete that whole group. So we've got a security group here. We have 3 users who belong to the security group. So what do we actually do with the security group? Well, what we can do is we can go into our file system or our folder structure now. And let's say we've got a business folder here. Let's say we've got our intranet group, our intranet folder here. Let's say that we, that's not really a good example. Okay, let's just say that we had a folder in here under business called IT resources. And this had a whole bunch of files and whatnot and instructions for various things in this folder, and I wanted to apply permissions to it. Then what I would actually do is I would click on the 3 dots next to the folder name to access the options for this folder. I would click the Manage Permissions button, and what I would do is by default it will say that you don't have it on to customize folder permissions, so you want to click yes. While we're doing that, let's just, what we also want to do is we want to click on this big text box here where it says groups who can edit files in this folder. We want to type in the name of one of our security groups. So you can't add users directly to the folder permissions. You've got to do it by adding security groups. So we can, what am I doing? We want to type in the name of our group, then select our group from that list. We can add multiple groups. So if you wanted to add something like your IT admin group as well as your business admin group, and you wanted to add your receptionist group, you can add those multiple groups into here. Actually, I'll just do that. So I'll also add the business and admin group. We've got 2 groups that are part of it. Cool. Now we can close that. And now anything under that IT resources folder will not be accessible by any users who don't belong to those 2 groups. Just to show you how that works, I have another user, but I'm logged as in this tab, And basically this user is Jamie Bruin. Now, when I was creating that group beforehand, I didn't add myself into the group. I added 3 other people. So if I go into the business folder, you can see that I cannot see that IT resources group, whereas signed in as an admin, I can see that group. So that might be a better comparison for you. So we have all of the other folders except for the IT resources group, because I don't have permission to it as a standard user in here. And you can see that not having permission to it makes it really hard to know that folder exists at all. If I were to go into that folder and go manage permissions again, I could say, no, I don't want to customize the folder permissions, close that. And if I open up my other user here and load that folder again, I can now actually see that folder, and I'll be able to go into it and access anything that's inside there. So that's how the folder permissions work. One of the other things we can do is we can actually customize those permissions a bit further. So if I go into my manage permissions again, I'm going to say yes, I want to customize the folder permissions. I don't want to just add groups who will be able to fully edit the folders. Let's say I've got a group of users who are our marketing team, who we want to be able to access whatever's in this folder, but we don't want them to be able to edit or overwrite things. In that case, I can go to the Advanced tab in this permissions window, and we'll see a full list of all of our security groups here. And then what we can do is we can say our IT admin group, we wanted to have full access. We want them to be able to edit things, so we click the edit button. And our business and admin group, we wanted to have edit permissions, so we click the edit button there. Let's say we wanted our support group or support staff group here to have read-only permissions, so they'll be able to access and view the content in there, but they won't be able to create new items or upload things or modify content that's in there. All of these other groups that have none set as the permissions, these ones are where they won't even be able to see that folder at all, so they won't be able to access that folder or anything inside it. Whereas read-only at least allows them to access the folder and its contents, but without writing to it. So that's how the permissions work. And then to save those, we just click the close button and close that window. So that is pretty much it. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask away. Otherwise, I think that pretty much covers the admin stuff. Yeah, I'm just trying to think. Oh, the other thing you can do if you're an admin is you can right-click on folders. So normally you have to go into a folder and then bring up the folder options. What you can actually do is from the parent folder, you can right-click on a subfolder and you'll get these 3 options, which just allows you to do things a lot quicker. So if you were going through a couple of client folders and needed to manage permissions on a couple of them, you could just go to one, right click, manage permissions, see your permissions up here, right click on another one, manage permissions, set up the permissions on this one, or if you're wanting to delete things, you could just right click delete or rename to do things. It's quite quick and efficient that way. Yeah, that is the admin stuff. That sums up SuiteFiles for administrators.